Hi, everyone. Well, it was an incredible energy in the room since this morning. I'm sure that the room will fill up very soon as well. I know many people are on the coffee break. And I also appreciate that the lunchtime is getting really very close. So obviously, the blood sugars are getting lower. I had the same thing as well. And we are still delighted to have this amazing conversation, hopefully going forward for three of us on HR's AI journey. I'm Serkan Deveci. I've been working at Google for 15 years, where I held leadership roles, various leadership roles actually, in sales, strategy, and HR. Most recently, I was the head of HR for EMEA and APAC for the sales organizations. Then recently, I joined back to sales. Now I'm the head of retail for Benelux markets. So taking both commercial and HR lens into what I do every day. And today, I have the privilege of moderating this wonderful session that is, frankly speaking, in my opinion, the most crucial conversation that we should be having as HR leaders right now. For many of us, if you think about it, AI feels like a mix of excitement, but also overwhelm. And we heard about this in the previous panels and conversations that we had on this stage as well. We all read the headlines. We all see all the social media news. We hear the buzzwords. We all know that we must actually invest in AI in our companies as HR leaders. But then we look into our annual budgets, our teams, our yearly business plans, and then we wonder, where do I even begin? So today we will have a practical conversation. We promise that it's not going to be a theoretical discussion. We will talk about what we have seen that best works for us to lead with confidence in the future of work powered by AI. So to move from theory to action today, I'm joined by two exceptional leaders who are in the front lines of this change every single day. Teresa Coelho, Global Chief People Officer at Acumen, and Stefano Picchiecchio, Global HR and Talent Director at Microsoft. Welcome you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really wonderful to share the stage with you. Before we get to it with our chat, I'll actually ask you to introduce yourselves because my intro will not do justice to your incredible career journeys. Shall we start with you?
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, first and foremost, to invited us to be here. It is really a pleasure. It's my first time in Istanbul, so it's really great to be here with everyone sharing learnings and experience across, and I have already learned so much in this morning. So, as Serkan was saying, I'm Teresa Coelho. I'm a Portuguese living in Madrid for the past 10 years. So I was born in Africa, I was raised in Brazil, and then my parents took us to Portugal, where I lived most of my young adult life, and now I've been living in Spain for the past 10 years. I've worked in many different industries. I worked in banking industries, from a Portuguese bank to Barclays Bank. I have worked in the retail business. I worked at Staples. I worked at Amazon. As a matter of fact, one of the most interesting experiences of my life. I have very recently worked at KPMG. And I also had the opportunity to work at UEFA, organizing the European Football Championship in Portugal, where we almost won the final, almost. Okay, so now I'm currently leading the global HR function for Acumen. Acumen is a real estate business, so I'm in the private equity sector now, working with a startup company based headquarters in Spain, but we are present in 14 countries, unfortunately not yet in Turkey, so we're looking forward. And I'm a mother of two amazing and very bright girls.
Amazing.
Super. Great intro. Hello, everyone. Very excited to be here. Thanks for having me. It's my second time, actually, in Istanbul, so just one more than Teresa. My name is Stefano Picchiecchio. I'm based in Italy, and I'm original from Italy. I work as a global talent leader for Microsoft in the commercial organization. And as I always say, I was chosen by HR. I did not choose HR. Came into HR absolutely by chance, starting as a recruiter in my very first company, which was an Italian retail fashion company. At the time, opening stores mainly in France and in the UK. And then I evolved my career into General Electric, where I stayed for more than a decade, always in HR business partner, client HR roles in different industries too, financial services and banking. I actually joined the financial services business in 2008. Not a great strategic move, I could say, but I learned a lot from that. And then also in high-tech technology, like airplane engines or locomotives, which was the specialty of GE. And then almost 8 years ago, I joined Microsoft, first as an HR leader, and then in the last 3 years in the global talent management team of sales. I have 3 kids. 2 teenagers, unfortunately, but that time is going to pass quickly, hopefully. And I'm very excited for the conversation we're going to have, so let's start it.
That's amazing, and we are sitting in order of the number of kids that we have, 3, 2, 1. That's great. And I see that the room is started to fill up as well after the break. You haven't missed anything just yet. You only missed who we are. You can check our LinkedIn profiles as well in terms of who we are. But Stefano, Teresa, and Serkan, with that, let's get to it in our chat. Now, when it comes to AI in HR, there's one terminology, there's one term that we constantly hear about, and that is AI literacy. So being literate in AI for HR. And I'm not trying to be philosophical here, but I've been thinking about it. Why does it matter for HR leaders to be literate in AI? What is in it for HR leaders, right? So maybe let's talk a little bit about that. And for me, it matters because as an HR leader, you cannot possibly make an informed strategic decision on something that you don't understand. And if we or our business leaders that we partner with, if they cannot grasp the inputs, the limitations, or the value proposition of the AI capability that we are trying to invest in our companies, how can we confidently decide which tools to invest in, right? And how to manage their benefits? How to possibly integrate them effectively and efficiently into our talent processes. So for me, really, a lack of literacy in AI equals to poor strategic decision-making in the company. So shall we start with that? And Teresa, if you think about it, building AI literacy across the company, what role, in your opinion, should HR play in it?
Okay, I think HR is going to be an instrumental role, right? So whenever we talk about job design and whenever we talk about transformation, we talk about HR, right? So HR plays a very critical role whenever we're talking about that. And when we talk about AI, we're clearly talking about transforming jobs in the organization. So AI cannot be something that is not on the agenda of HR. So one of the things that, for instance, we did this year with my HR team, when once a year we get together, is that let's work on AI and make sure that we build the right level of confidence within HR for us ourselves to understand what AI can provide us in a way that is safe, that is secure, in order for us also to be able to advise our business leaders on how to implement it. So I think for me, AI should master the adoption, HR should master the adoption of AI, right? So for me, it's super critical that we really understand. And we can practice that with very small and easy plugs and cases. Like, for instance, job descriptions. Like, for instance, internal communications. Or things like even preparing 360-degree feedbacks. Right, so these are the kind of things that we've been working with our HR team across all of the globe and say, trial with that, learn with that, because you have to implement it. So then we need to talk about how we're going to build this literacy across the organization. And one of the foundations of that is about setting the right AI governance and the right AI policy. So now, for instance, at Acumen, we are discussing what should be our AI policy. And the other day, just as a funny moment, we were talking about who in the different 14 countries that we have has already an AI policy and how could we leverage from that. And we got the Germans raising their hands and say, oh, we do have an AI policy. I said, oh, perfect. So what is your AI policy? And said, it's not allowed. And there was a 30-second pause. And then everyone started to laugh because the train is gone. It's already on movement. You cannot say to your employees not to use. Most of our teams are already on the day-to-day using it for professional and personal. And the worst thing we could do is to ignore that and not build a proper governance around it. So one of the things we're already working on is how to build that policy and how we're going to tackle that. And we have different kinds of teams across the organization, right? So in one hand, we have employees like all of us that we use that, for doing things like job descriptions or preparing communications or preparing to give a feedback to our employees, but we also have software developers in our team that are using AI to develop solutions to our customers, right? So we need to make sure that they know exactly how to use. And there is no road book already defined. So we are learning and iterating, which goes back to my third point on this, beyond literacy, is that we also need to create what we call a fearless sense of innovation. And what do we mean by this fearless sense of innovation is that we need to allow people to trial. So we're creating a safe space where all of the employees that they want, they can go there and use AI to do whatever they think is adequate to benefit their proper offer that they're doing for the customer, a conversation with an employee. We're telling them, trial everything. And if you try something that you believe it's good, share it in a library, a video library that we are creating so people can see what are the options. So this concept of allowing employees to test and to trial is also super important. And the final piece on the literacy is the role of the leaders for us, right? So for us, if we have leaders that are afraid of AI, and they are concerned about how AI is going to change their job or how they are not going to be able to control or to properly measure the work of their teams, we need to help them in that journey because it's inevitable. It's a way to help everyone feel much more efficient. It's a way to increase our productivity. So we need to give that level of confidence. So now what we're trying to pilot in the organization is a program for leaders to gain confidence on how to use and how to role model how to use it to their employees. And we're working on all of those three pillars at the same time.
So it's try, experiment, learn, so that you become more confident and you don't fear of something that you don't know because you already know it now.
Exactly right. We don't know all of the answers now. So we need to keep an open eye and an open mind on that one.
Be hands-on, really.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. Stefano?
Yeah, I love all of that. And it made me think around the pre-question. Why should HR take care about AI literacy and not IT or the technical folks? Well, actually, the number one reason is that HR is the connective tissue of any healthy organization. It's the only function that really can touch every person and every role, more than any other function can do. And the second reason is that HR can really build the learning in a way that is more about the everyday life of the employee, more than the algorithms and the technical piece of it. And for people to learn and to get the AI literacy, making it real for their real job, that's really everything that matters. So I tend to say one size does not fit all when you build AI literacy in your organization, as what's needed in one role is not needed in the other role. You cannot go too much standard. I'll make a practical example. Let's say you introduce a new applicant tracking system in your business, which is AI-infused and AI-powered, and your talent acquisition folks are using it. They don't only need to learn how to use the tool. They need to know everything related to the bias which can be embedded into AI when selecting data for candidates. The tool that you're using, how was it built? How were the data built? Were there bias in this data? How is this impacting the selection of candidate and profiles? Is the tool really selecting the right candidate for you, or you're not even seeing some candidates because they're just screened out instead of screened in? Now, a good talent acquisition person would know this risk and would be able to apply judgment and critical thinking to it. And that's a very different set of learning that you would place versus a finance person using AI to do forecasting, or another person in HR using it to do workforce planning. It's different level of depth. So at the minimum, I would say you can think through every function should have its own use cases or learning path, and in an ideal stage, the most important roles would also have its own use cases. The good news is you don't need to build everything from the top. The technology is so new that typically you will engage people and involve people in building these use cases and in building this AI literacy. And Other thing I would say is that anything you do with regards to building AI literacy or training people on AI will never work if you don't have clarity and transparency. This sounds very simple, but it's incredibly difficult to put. So is the AI strategy of your company clear to every employee? Do they know why we are introducing an AI tool in Department A versus Department B? Is it clear for everyone, or is it clear just in the board meetings and in the LT meetings? Is there a clear way that this is communicated? That's the clarity with the strategy. And then there's the transparency. People are worried about AI. As much as they're excited, is a paradox from any perspective. You need to be able to be transparent with regards to what you're going to do with AI, as much as you can. What's the use of employee data that AI is going to do? These are questions that your people will have. If you don't build this baseline and this clean field with regards to clarity and transparency, everything you put on top is going to be pretty shaky and unstable.
I love the way you mentioned each department, each team in the organization needs to define the case studies for their own. So it's all about really identifying those scenarios, different scenarios within the organization, which department will do what. And you can't possibly do it if you don't know what you are doing, exactly, how it is working. And this is not to say that HR leaders or the business leaders in the organization should be AI experts or software engineers suddenly knowing AI. So it's totally something else. And with that, let's move a little bit from literacy to actually doing it. So what do we mean by it? And one of the biggest barriers is internal resistance. And I use that term in two senses. One is internal to the organization, so within the teams. And the second is internal to us as individuals, so more like, intrinsic motivation and how we feel about it, the emotions, the fear that we have, or the confidence that we have towards AI. So the transition from knowing to actually doing it can only be done with intention and safe environment. So for many organizations, then, that means building the confidence to experiment, to your point, Teresa, then, without fear of doing it wrong. Now, Stefano, I know you have plenty of experience in this area. You mentioned a few of them already. How have you created space for your HR teams and the business leaders that you're working with so that they can safely explore and play with AI?
Oh, that's a great point. So first, coming back to what we shared before, AI generates a mix of feelings in people working in your business, just like it does with us. There is the excitement. I want to be good at this. I want to learn this. This can help me in being impactful. It can help me in my career. It can help all my team doing things better. And on the other side, you have all the worries around, am I going to ever be able to really learn it, to use it right? I have a lot of question marks and no one to talk about it. So the first thing that I've seen working is always start by giving a name to the worry. And this is something that can happen. It can happen as easily as doing an anonymous survey through the employees with regards to just share what is in your mind. Or you start a meeting, a virtual meeting, and in the chat you can put anonymous inputs around what's worrying you, what would you like to solve today, what you have not solved on the other last time that you want to solve it. The first thing that happens when you put the problem in the middle of a group is that the problem suddenly shrinks. In everyone's mind is, oh, I'm not the only one who has this worry. I'm not the only one who faced this problem. Oh, that peer of mine had this problem and solved it in a pretty smart way. I'm going to do that again. If you don't start with that, that's going to remain in the back of the mind of people, and all the rest that you can do to facilitate the process is just not going to work. So just give a name to the fear. We normally fear what we don't know. That's why we have naturally fear of the dark. But suddenly you put a light on it, and that is going to move back a bit. The other piece is, at the start, the focus is everything on what do you learn. There's a tendency in every organization around ROI, efficiency, results. So you organize a beautiful workshop regarding AI, and at the end of the day or the 2 days where you spend a lot of money, a lot of people's time, the question is, what did we achieve? Well, if you're at the start, the real question should be, what did we learn? You should not talk about the results yet until much later in the process. It's really, what did we learn? That should be the only question that every leader or facilitator should ask if you want to help create that sort of environment. And then make it practical. I'll make an another example from HR. Let's say you have never had your team working on AI, never ever. You put your HR team together and you say, let's pick up the top 2, 3 roles that we really struggle in hiring. There's never enough candidates, they're never qualified enough. And as a team, let everyone work with AI to build more inclusive job specs, more inclusive job adverts, where you actually screen in folks who have adjacent skills, which can be used in there, who actually, when they read on your original job advert, they say, I will never be able to do all of this, I'm not going to apply. That's a nice exercise where each and every one can share their own learnings and build together in a very low-risk environment, in something that we know AI does extremely well. In fact, a lot of people are doing that. That's really at the baseline side. And the last piece I would say is celebrate the effort. Don't celebrate the result, the goal, the achievement. When you first learn to go on a bicycle, the very first time, I can pretty bet, almost everyone has fallen. Well, my parents didn't came to me and told me, oh, what's the ROI of the time that I'm spending in teaching you to go on the bike? They were just telling me, come on back on the bike and try it again and again and again. And that's exactly the same way you could approach AI and learning for your team in a way that makes it more safe and secure. At the start, only focus on praising the effort, giving it visibility, making sure that people who share their own learnings get the right recognition for that. So this is sort of a cycle from where you start to where you end and then moving on that I've seen working pretty well.
You mentioned bringing HR leaders in one room, and I remember one session, just to reiterate what you said, we even wrote very simple bits of codes and prompts to train a sample model. Nothing sophisticated, nothing complicated, but then going back to what we said about the AI literacy, it actually helped us to understand that it's nothing to fear about. We can now understand how that works in very simple terms, but still it's no longer a black box. And I think it was really very important, because then what is also important is that that doesn't stay as a one-off workshop. You have to then support it with more learnings and more trainings. And although I am not a big fan of mandatory trainings at work, however, I will say that if there's one thing that I would do, and I would suggest all of you, is make it compulsory, those trainings for AI, for HR leaders, and put it in your quarterly objectives. It's super critical in the new future of work. With that, you and I also discussed this a lot, so I want to hear your thoughts and your examples as well, because you worked a lot on this field too.
Thank you, Sekam. Indeed, so I will bring a little bit of more practical examples, though I'm super in alignment with what Stefano says. If there is no transparency, if there is really not talking about the problem in the room, it's not going to be hard. It's going to be hard for us to address it. To be very honest, our position is very humble. We have no idea about AI, right? So I said to everyone, we need to trial this together collectively. And I said, so the first thing we did with the HR team in itself was to sit them all in a room and say, let's do a job description. Let's do prompts, and let's prompt together. So each one will build their own prompt for the same position. Let's see what is the difference, what we learn from the different prompts, what is the right way to build a prompt and how to talk with artificial. And then how should we also get our own feedback to the machine, because they are learning from us. It is also super important that you say, well, I don't think the tone is exactly what is aligned with our culture. Let's adjust a little bit the tone. So the machine is learning also with us, and it's also improving the way it's giving us. So as I said, we're practicing that. With leaders, what we're doing is, now that we have a little bit more confidence within the HR space, particularly for those 3 areas that I already discussed, what we're doing is that we're sitting with our own leaders and saying to them, within your areas of space, where do you believe AI can give you an immediate boost? Where do you think it's going to be a quick win? And how can we help with your teams on building those quick wins? And again, as I said, we're building this AI policy where we're going to create an AI shared area beyond the fact that everyone will have access in their different systems to AI. We also have other AI tools. So we're going to create a space where those tools will be available, and employees will be applying to use those tools, trial whatever they want for those particular business case. Again, as you said, we have no idea. We are at the very early stage. We don't know exactly where it's going to lead. What we're asking everyone is, whenever they build something that they learn from it, to share the learning in that video library that we have. And we do it in a video way because we believe that less and less people are reading things. So we're trying to do it in a more interactive where the person just do a 1-minute video to say, this was my challenge, this is what I learned from my challenge, and this is how we're building it. So that's how we're trying to pilot it. And then we're working with the university currently, where basically we are building the program for leaders because that's where we believe there are going to be key elements on helping us drive this transformation.
It's a brilliant example because it shows how planned and organized it is, and that's, I think, what we are missing in many of the companies as well. We just sometimes jump on the bandwagon without really thinking through it, strategically planning it, and then trying to invest in it and expect a successful outcome, which is not happening then. That brings me to proactive leadership. Right, so we talked about HR leaders, really, who invite others to test, who put time on the agenda for experimentation, but also who don't wait for someone else to approve the first step. So they actually take the initiative, they take the leadership in it. And for me, these are the fundamentals of proactive leadership in HR when it comes to AI. So in your view, what does proactive leadership look like, and how can HR really enable that mindset shift?
And to be honest, goes back again to what we already said, role modeling, right? So we need to be the first ones. That's why I think the adoption in HR is really going to be crucial. We need to be the first ones to not show fear about it and to feel also and show at the same time the humility that we don't know exactly everything that we're doing. And again, I think we need to talk about it with the maximum transparency, right? So in our day-to-day, we keep talking between ourselves, between my HR team or even between leaders. My CEO, it's a funny person that he keeps using AI for everything. We use AI on everything. And I was giving an example this morning on the breakfast. I have 2 hours time in Istanbul. I was talking with AI and say, what can I do in these 2 hours very close here to get a good sense of the culture of Istanbul, right? So AI is building me a whole program. So I cannot think about my life without that. So for me, proactive leadership is all about being humble on you don't know everything and you can share it with so people start to feel confidence about how to use it. I think that's important. And again, I also think we need to have the critical mindset, right? I also am seeing some behaviors in HR, in my team. Like I send these magnificent dashboards to AI. AI gives me the insights, and I send it to Teresa. Teresa's going to, and then I start to read the insights, and I think, this was built by AI. Did you? So this is the other thing that we also need to be very careful, is just to say, okay, great, you're using AI, that's amazing, well done. But you need to have critical thinking because AI is learning from us and is getting the information from what is openly now in the globe, in the net, right? And so there are things that are great, but there are things that are not that great. And we need to keep, and I think Stefano said it very well, we need to keep that brain power, again, on our side to really say, this is good, this is not good. This is I'm using, and this is what I'm not using. And to me, this is proactive leadership.
To your point, we sometimes underestimate, especially in the business world, the power of saying, I don't know, I am learning, as opposed to we're trying to make up the,
looking
the
great all the
knowledge.
time.
Totally, yeah. We are getting to an end, and I'm sure that Pınar and Buğra will very shortly wave their hands to me, but I really want to hear your thoughts on the proactive leadership as well.
Well, I'll just leave one picture I have in mind, which is proactive leadership to me is realizing the historical moment when we are. We are on year 3 after the generative AI and LLMs have become mainstream. This is not going to last forever. The opportunity for HR, to me, is clear. The old management theories, which have been working for 50 to 60 years, don't apply exactly the same way in a world where you have AI agents that do the work together with your people. Your best people manager today, the one who does the right feedback, the right coaching, draws talent, tomorrow may have 10 people and 5 agents, and they may not be anymore your best people manager. What are you doing about it? Yeah. The way you assess performance is going to change. Today, Mario is performing better than Luigi, but you give AI to both, and suddenly Luigi performs better than Mario. How explicit is your policy around performance assessment and performance management and use of AI? Because still Luigi, if you take AI away, is still back on the performance line. These are sort of themes around how you manage people that no one has an answer to. We're building it. So to me, there's a fantastic opportunity as if you're an HR professional for the next 5 years, to really put a stamp, put a mark, and be proactive, not waiting for the CEO and the leadership team to come to you, oh, we have this problem, from the feedback from the employees. Actually, being proactive, thinking about it, and making sure you really make an impact over that.
So that you can grasp that opportunity, really.
Yeah.
With that, I think the key takeaway is really do not leave this room today without identifying one action, I would suggest, that you'll bring back to your teams. Find one process, one team, or simply one affordable tool that you can test and experiment with. And with that, please join me in thanking the brilliant Teresa and Stefano. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefano. To you too. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.